love isn't political. This isn't a fight that's over yet. You're valid and deserving of love just as you are. Hello everybody, this is Chloe from Dissociated, and this is a channel that is dedicated to erasing the stigma that surrounds dissociative identity disorder and educating people about what it really means. Today I'm going to be doing a video that's a little bit different. It's still related to dissociative identity disorder and mental health, but considering that this month is Pride Month, I asked on Instagram if you guys would be interested in hearing about how I came to terms with my sexuality, especially revolving around dissociative identity disorder. See you in a minute. So how is sexuality related to DID in any way at all? Well, if you have dissociative identity disorder, you may know of it as multiple personality disorder. It was renamed dissociative identity disorder in the 90s, so that terminology is about 30 years out of date, and it's the same disorder. It essentially means that you have multiple people, personalities, alters that share one body. Alters can be very, very different from one another. They can have different skin tones, different races, different accents, different sexuality, different gender, different sex, different opinions on the world, different religions, anything. And if you're interested in how alters differ from one another, we have a whole series called All About Alters, which goes into more detail about the differences between different types of alters, about non-human alters, about what switching means, about why some alters have different skin colors, races, genders, sexes. So if you are interested in that, please have a look up here. So when you're sharing a body with multiple different people, it can be quite difficult sometimes, especially if you don't know that you have dissociative identity disorder, to figure out where certain feelings are coming from. And you may be getting a passive influence from one of your alters, which is kind of like having their thoughts or emotions or feelings bleeding through. And we did do a video on this, and you can check that one out up there if you want to. Especially before I knew personally that I had DID, I was struggling with my sexuality. When I was trying to come to terms with what label I felt fitted me best and what box I needed to belong in, because I felt a lot of pressure to decide on a label and be able to tell people that yes, I'm this, so that they could understand and that I could belong somewhere. But sometimes my feelings would change. Some days I'd feel more attracted to one sex than the other. Sometimes I would feel no attraction to one sex and all attraction to the other. And it was very, very confusing. Now, what I'm going to be talking about today is my personal experience. DID is a very diverse disorder, and sexuality is also very, very diverse. It differs from person to person massively. So I can't say that just because this is my experience that it's going to represent everybody else's in the same way. It's okay if your DID doesn't look like ours. It's okay if your experience of discovering your sexuality or your gender doesn't look like ours. Nobody's going to be exactly the same, and that doesn't make you any less valid. I don't think that I was ever straight. I remember hearing for the first time about people being able to be in love with people of the same sex or date people of the same sex or the same gender when I was around 12, 13. And I immediately thought, oh, well, oh, that's okay. Then I'm that then. I knew from the start that I wasn't only attracted to men. I'm in a female body. I identify as female, me as Chloe. I am female, cis female. But I knew that I had an attraction to women as well as men. I know the first time that I heard the word bi was when my friend came out to me. I think it must have been year 9, so we were maybe 14, 15 years old. And he was like, I'm bisexual. And I was like, what's that? I don't know what that is. And he was like, oh, I'm attracted to men and women. And I was like, oh, same, awesome. That means I'm bisexual too. And we were like, hey, awesome. And then didn't speak about it for like 6 years. This individual now, I believe, considers himself to be gay, and I now consider myself to be pansexual. There's a lot of emotion, strong emotion that people have around these labels and around what they mean, and whether choosing one label makes you intolerant or homophobic or biphobic or panphobic towards another label. The definitions that I know are that if you are straight, you are attracted to the person of the opposite gender to you. If you are homosexual, you are attracted to someone of the same sex or gender as you. If you're bisexual, you're attracted two genders. Some people say it's two genders, because bi, some people say two or more genders, and pan means all. So pan means you're attracted to all genders or people regardless of gender. I've had people tell me that because I identify as pansexual that I'm biphobic, because they're essentially the same thing, and it's all a little bit messy. That's kind of why I do feel a little bit uncomfortable putting myself in a box, especially because when I finally did find a box that I was happy with, which was bisexual for a long time, and then falling in love with someone who was non-binary, who is my partner currently is non-binary, I was like, oh, well, now I need to find a different box that fits me better. I think at the end of the day, if being in a box or having a label gives you that feeling of community and belonging and makes you feel comfortable and happy and right in yourself, then that's fantastic. And you should be whatever you want to be, use whatever label feels best for you. But at the same time, I think that labels are just an easy way to help somebody think, I know what that means, but with one word rather than having to explain it. I don't think that boxes and labels are supposed to be something that should hold you down. People are fluid. Sometimes sexuality is fluid. Even gender can be fluid. Please don't feel like you need to stay in a box because of what other people will think of you. It's okay to change. And it's okay if you feel like you fit somewhere and then later on realize that maybe you didn't fit there after all. That shouldn't mean that you have to lose a community that you found or that you suddenly don't belong there anymore. We're people. We're not categories. We're not boxes. We're not objects. We're people. We belong wherever we feel we fit in and are loved and safe and accepted and safe to the rest of that community. When I was growing up and trying to come to terms with my sexuality, I struggled. A lot of people would ask me, okay, so you're attracted to men and women, you're bisexual. What percentage are you like straight? And what percentage are you homosexual? What percentage lesbian are you? What percentage straight are you? It was an everyday thing, me trying to rack my brain, trying to figure out what do I want? Who am I? Where are these feelings coming from? Why are they changing? Because some days I'd feel like I was only attracted to women. Other days I'd feel like I was only attracted to men and maybe it was all a phase and it was weird. And some days it would be like 100% 50-50. A lot of the time I felt like I was more lesbian than straight. So maybe I was like 75% lesbian and the other half straight. But then I saw something one day which helped me come to terms with understanding that bisexuality in its own is valid, because I think I was struggling because I felt like I needed to pick one or the other, and as if bisexuality was something in the middle rather than its own valid own category that's not half and half, it's its own thing. So I felt like I was sliding along this spectrum, not really sure where I fitted, that it changed every day. I think some of that to some extent is normal, and some of it was passive influence from my alters. We have some alters who are lesbian, we have some alters who are straight, we have some alters who are pan, some who are aromantic, some who are asexual. It's all a little bit crazy when you feel other people's feelings as well as your own. So some of it definitely could have been bleeding or passive influence from them. I was falling into that stigma as I was growing up of feeling like if you're bi, you're kind of half out of the closet, that you're at a halfway point or a crossroads where you need to make a decision, or that you can't just be bi, it's just a way to test the waters before you come out as fully gay, or you're just seeking attention, or you're just greedy. A lot of people seem to think that girls would do it to be attractive to guys, to try and seem more cool or fun-loving, and I didn't feel like that was why I was doing it, and it wasn't why I was doing it. It wasn't something I could help, it wasn't something I could change. It did frighten me. I was worried about the idea of eternal damnation and, what people thought of me and going to hell, and there were occasions where I got heckled on the streets for holding my girlfriend's hand and, people shouting and saying not very nice things, and it was something that kept me up at night, wondering, why am I this way? Am I worth less because I'm like this? Can I come out to my parents? Am I going to be safe? Would I ever be able to find someone who loves me back as a girl? Would it just be easier if I put this aside and pretended it wasn't happening? I can't pick. Why can't I pick? I just need to choose. And this is frightening. And maybe if I forget about it, it'll go away. But I couldn't forget about it. So I threw myself into trying to understand feeling like I needed to date a girl to know if I was actually gay or not, or like I needed to be intimate with a girl to find out if I was actually gay or not, or whatever, even though I knew I knew that I was attracted to women. It was other people who didn't believe me. It was difficult to find validation for myself when so much of what I existed for was revolving around other people and what I could do for other people and how I came across to other people. It was difficult to accept that your sexuality isn't something that you can control, and that regardless of what other people think, it's not going to change. I felt like I needed to find out all in one go, that I was running out of time, that I was losing my youth and losing the only time I would have to find out before I had to settle down, or before people grew tired of me, or before I wasn't attractive enough anymore. I wasn't surrounded by people who were LGBT either. I knew a couple of people who were LGBT, but nobody I could really talk to about it. The people I was closest to tried to understand, but didn't really get it. It was something that occupied my thoughts almost every minute of the day. Who am I? Who am I going to be? What does this mean for my future? Am I going to lose people over this? Are people going to be disgusted by me? Are people not going to want to be my friends anymore in case they think I'm going to hit on them? Are people going to think of me as fake or greedy or attention seeking just because of who I fall in love with? Some people might think, oh, I don't care about your sexuality. It doesn't even matter. Just love who you want, whatever. It's not that easy. This is something that can affect your life. Maybe how family members will perceive you, how future lovers will perceive you. Will you ever be able to get married in the future? Are you ever going to be attacked for this? Are your friends going to understand? What if someone at your work finds out? What if you get bullied for it? Are you ever going to safely be able to love the person that you love? Are you ever going to have the security of a recognized marriage? In some places, you'll still be put to death for it. This isn't a fight that's over yet. But the one thing that made me realize that I was bisexual was I read something online, and it was an ice cream metaphor, and it had being straight as a vanilla ice cream and being gay as a chocolate ice cream. A lot of people seem to think that being bisexual is like having a whippy ice cream that's slightly vanilla and slightly chocolate. It's almost like a Neapolitan type mix of stuff. You're half and half, or some percentage of these two other things that are their own thing, and you're just sort of a mix in the middle. And then it said, that's not quite the case. You're not half gay and half straight. You're your own thing. You're attracted to two genders rather than one. You're not a mix of something. You're strawberry ice cream. You're not a mix of vanilla and chocolate. You're valid on your own. You're not stuck in the middle. You're not a halfway point. You're not less important or less valid. It's different. You're attracted to two genders or more, instead of one gender that is either the same as yours or opposite from yours. Please don't get angry with me about these labels. This is just how I understand it best. It's not meant to be offensive. I'm not phobic towards any sexualities at all. I just know that how I feel is I fall in love with people regardless of their gender. I've been in love with people who are male, female, non-binary. I don't care. I don't care. I remember when I first went on a date with my ex-girlfriend, her dad offered to pick us up afterwards. We were eating out at this nice restaurant on our first date. She got a message that her dad was there, and we had to leave really quickly so that he didn't suspect that it was a date. We had to leave the restaurant so that it didn't look like we were gay, because he didn't know yet, and she didn't know how he was going to react, and I didn't know how he was going to react. Things like that can still be stressful. Some people in my life still struggle to understand it and struggle not to have proof that, I haven't been with as many girls as I've been with guys, blah, 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 are you sure? Coming to terms with your sexuality is difficult. For some people, it's really easy. You just know and you're happy with it. For other people, you might be in denial for 20, 30, 40 years. For some people, it's dangerous even to think about. Your sexuality is just another part of who you are. It doesn't define you. Just like having brown eyes doesn't define me, neither does my sexuality. Just like having dissociative identity disorder doesn't define who I am, neither does my sexuality. It's just a part of me. It's not all of me. It's not something my life revolves around. It's just part of my makeup. I know that it's difficult for a lot of people, especially if you have a mental illness or an unsupportive family, or you come from a background of abuse, or you live in a country where it's illegal to love. And I hope that one day the world will get to a place where Love isn't something that's considered to be a commodity, and that it's not political, and that people can just share one good thing in this life and not be attacked for it. That people can share love and happiness and their life together and it not be considered a political or religious statement. Love isn't political. If you're transgender, you're valid. If you're straight, you're valid. If you're homosexual, you're valid. If you're bisexual, you're valid. If you're pansexual, you're valid. If you're aromantic, you're valid. If you're asexual, you're valid. If you're grey sexual or grey romantic, you're valid. If you're anything, it doesn't matter what label you're using, you're valid. And we support you. And you're worthy and deserving of love. And that doesn't make you a bad person. It doesn't mean you're damned. And if it's difficult to figure out, if you have DID especially, I get it. I wish I had better advice than take your time and don't panic. Just wait for what feels right. You're not going to run out of time. Talk to your system members. Write down how you feel. Talk to the people around you who you can trust. Talk to people online if you can't trust anybody in your physical life. And please don't feel pressured to come out if you don't feel comfortable yet, or you're not sure yet, or you don't feel safe. I know there's a lot of pressure around coming out or having a label that fits you, deciding how you feel about being LGBT+. Nobody can tell you how to be LGBT+. You don't have to be the same kind of gay, the same kind of trans, the same kind of anything as anyone else in order to fit in. You're valid and deserving of love just as you are. All of you are valid and deserving of love just as you are. And I hope that everybody who's celebrating Pride this month has a wonderful Pride, and that people remember that this isn't just a celebration of us being who we are. It's a battle for equal rights. It's a march for acceptance. It's a shout to the rest of the world that we're here, and that we're human, and that there's nothing ugly or disgusting about us, and that we deserve the same rights, the same right to love, the same right to marry, the same right to exist without persecution, without hatred as anyone else. Stay safe this Pride, and know that we're proud of you. Lots of love, everybody. Bye.